there's something about travel, going to different countries, seeing different people, that opens up your mind to so many things about your own self, about what we are inside, the country we live in, what do we need to take pride on, or what we need to disassociate ourselves from. And I find cinema has constantly given me this opportunity to explore that more, just like books did in a particular time. So in any city, I think places like the Allianz or the Maximal Bhavan, that's what we called this place when I grew up, Goethe-Institut, I think there's something so special about it. The books they bring in, the people you walk there, and our own Indian friends who work there, I think because of the exposure constantly to things from other countries, the way they talk, the way they think varies. And it's lovely, which is why I'm here to meet the director of the Goethe-Institut today. It's such a lovely place. I remember a few years ago they changed a whole lot of these things. Aesthetics of a place is so important, and when you think of Germany, you think of the industries, the engineering and all that, and that with this aesthetics is really nice, and a very impressive director I met concerned with festival cinemas and all that. So it's going to be very nice talking to her. Every time I meet people from outside the country in Chennai, it's always very special because it's interesting to see how they will look at my hometown. And this lady impressed me, not just with her height, which gives her a very lofty viewpoint, but the way she spoke in the very first meeting. But tell me about your background. How did you reach Chennai?
My background, originally I studied film, which is not what brought me here, unfortunately. I did some research on Indian film, but now I work for the Goethe-Institut, so I don't get to do film anymore. And I did a trainee program in Pune for the Goethe-Institut as well.
You were with the National Archives, right? You did something with the National Archive of India?
Only research. I never worked there properly. That was only for personal research for my PhD.
But how come Indian cinema?
Because it's fascinating. It's colorful. It's joyful somehow. You kind of want to sing along. It has a very different vibe than the movies I'm used to.
And since you're from Germany, and you said you got educated in US too, where was your first exposure to Indian cinema?
In Paris, there was a retrospective for 100 years of Indian cinema. And I was not there for that at all. I was studying theater in Paris, and I was standing in line at the Museum Georges Pompidou, and the Shah Rukh Khan soundtrack Dil Se kept on playing in the Louvre.
So it was not Satyajit Ray or Adur Gopalakrishnan, it was
Shah Rukh Khan on a train.
That's very interesting. And I should get to know more about the activities you do here because of all that impact. So, Katharina, I find your surname a little difficult to pronounce.
Görgen, absolutely unfair for everyone who's not German.
You. So, tell me about Chennai. What is your first impression, and what is it you like about Chennai, dislike about Chennai?
I think like everyone else, I love the food. Idli dosa completely got my attention.
Idli dosa?
Idli dosa, same thing. And South Indian coffee. This is really has become like a Sunday morning ritual.
So was that different from your days from Pune and Mumbai?
Totally. I do miss paneer a little bit in Chennai. I think Chennai has a very different vibe. I mean, already it's always warm. I think the city is a little bit more slow for some reason, which I don't mean in a negative way, but I think it's more like relaxed in the south.
Okay, that's interesting because the way we perceive ourselves could be very different from your lofty perspective. So, you think, I mean, how many cities in India have you traveled to?
Oh, traveled to a lot. I did the very European backpacking 2 months, just me and my fascination for India. But that was only in the north because I was learning Hindi for my Bollywood films. So I did Delhi up to the mountains and then went back from Mumbai, the glittery city. So actually Chennai is like my first proper southern city.
And in Goethe-Institut, where you have all these lovely facilities. By the way, I was fascinated with this thing. Like it's like a
So
flag.
old school.
It's really interesting. So tell me, there are several things which is old school in Chennai, and you would have seen traditional aspects of temples, and whether it is our dance forms or any of those things. But what is it that majorly interests you in Chennai, other than the food and all that, as activities for Goethe-Institut? I know when you came in, I think it's about 5 months now, 6 months now.
It's my 3rd year.
It's your 3rd year.
Yeah, but 1.5 years of lockdown, which I've decided to not count because we were in lockdown, me personally and the institute.
Oh, okay. So in terms of activities which you've started here, what is specifically Chennai initiatives, and because you as a person and this as a city would have evolved to give us activities here in this lovely institute?
I think one very important thing that we are trying is really to get people back to come. I know other institutions have the same problem. People got very much used to Netflix and the couch during the pandemic. So we really try to do small events, little events. I mean, right now we're standing in the children corner. We try to have kids just come over and read for an hour.
I saw Ruskin Bond and Tom Sawyer.
Yes,
it
we
still
try our
attracts
best.
me. But yeah, so you have the library here and you have this lovely auditorium. Which gets more audience now?
I think the auditorium, because it's 50% used for language exams, which is still the thing that most of people associate with the Goethe-Institut Chennai, because they all had to do their exams here. And then during the weekend, it becomes like a cultural space. And then we do concerts. We had a very interesting event on literature. We are also trying to open up to more like female-oriented events, which is also not the easiest, I must say. But I think Chennai and me, we're going to find each other there.
That's what interests me most about you. We should get talking about that. That's a lovely painting you have up there.
Thanks, I also like it.
Feels very nice.
We actually thought that the kids would lie down on the floor and give names to the animals. It turns out they were more interested in lying underneath the staircase because it's more Harry Potter.
Okay, that's nice. But I can see the little child in you when you work on all these activities.
Yes, can't deny that.
Tell me, have you learned Tamil?
I'm trying, and I've already been trying for like 2.5 years. I can read it, I can write it, I just don't understand it.
You can read and write?
Yeah.
But you can't speak?
Ille.
Koncham koncham?
Koncham koncham.
Koncham koncham. So what are the activities in Chennai you like most?
Like I said, eating, of course, which is always on top of the list. I do go to the movies. I love just roaming around. Sometimes I do forget that Chennai has a beach, because sometimes from Nungambakkam it seems far, but I think it's a luxury to actually be able to walk on the beach during the weekend.
You should do more of it. East Coast romance.
Not so much. I'm too lazy to come back. I'm like very much in a city person. I've been doing lots of city walks, which I find interesting because, I mean, if you just drive by in a rickshaw, you just don't notice all the things. There are so many beautiful heritage Art Deco buildings, so it's quite amazing.
Your interest, your doctorate was on in media, about cinema, about women characters.
Yes.
And what I noticed first about you was the way you wanted a special screening with just women audience in the Chennai International Film Festival. And you managed to do it, though it was not, I think, the most welcome thing even for the organizers. I was like, yeah, I like it. Because I've always been wanting to do something on female-focused stuff. So what is it you notice about the reality of women in India and cinema?
Realities of women in India, that's one of the first things I noticed in Chennai when I came, and I was only walking, because there were so many restrictions with COVID. All of these little tea stalls, there were no women. It was always men. And I thought, like, where are the women? I mean, they also need a tea break, or they deserve a tea break. And then when I went to the movies for the first few times, I realized if it's not the early morning shows where people go with their kids and the entire family, it's a very male-dominated space. And I started speaking about it with people around me, and they all said, yeah, alone, we wouldn't go to the movies. If you go with your husband, it's fine. But also girl night out, movies don't seem to be an option, which breaks my heart, because I think everyone should be at the movies all the time. And if women somehow hesitate, I think they need some encouragement to come back to the movies.
I really liked your idea and I'm working on that. Films in Krishnaveni Theatre. I mean, why would you think of somebody like the director of Goethe-Institut saying, I want to do screening in Krishnaveni Theatre? That's what she told me. Amazing. That showed me a person who had a vision. And a person who had this smiling, confident steel will to go and get what she wants, which is what attracted me first to the way you were thinking. What about the subjects being portrayed as women-centric? Are cinemas reflecting our real society in terms of women?
For Tamil film, I really can't say that much. I've been trying to watch Tamil cinema. For Hindi film, I can, because that's really the topic I worked on, and I would say it's 50-50. Like, you have this superficial female life in Bollywood films, which has nothing to do with real life. I mean, they jet set around the world, they wear whatever they want. I mean, it's basically like American cinema, no? Also not depicting life. But I think when it comes to all of those moral questions, there actually is a switch back to very traditional cultural roots-based decisions also happening in mainstream cinema. So, and I do feel that this might be the same connect for Tamil films as well.
So, how come you didn't settle down in, was it just a job, or with your thesis on Hindi cinema, women in mainstream Hindi cinema, how come you're here, and are you missing the Hindi vibe when you're here?
No, I'm not. I do miss...
That's a good answer.
Thank you. I do miss watching films professionally. I think this is something that's a luxury. No? If you can say, I do film research at the university and this is what I do, because it gives you this access to tons and tons of films. So this I miss, but otherwise, no. I think it's quite exciting to restart on a new film culture once in a while. And now I'll try with the
And you put together some very interesting programs based on cinema at the Institute here. Tell us about that.
I think our most interesting probably was in the framework of an exhibition on masculinities, man, male, masculine. And we had a very interesting podium discussion on how men are depicted in films. Because coming from a feminist background, I always look at the woman and like, what's wrong? What else should they be able to do? And it was really interesting for me to see that there are also a lot of restrictions, maybe, I don't know, like not positive restrictions, I don't know how to say it. I mean, they have to be the shiny hero, they have to do this and that. They also cannot say in a film, oh, I would like to be the homemaker and stay with the kids. That's also not an option.
They don't have the freedom to choose either.
Yes, so this switch of perspective was really interesting, and you could also feel in the panel that this debate, I think it's very much at the beginning. People haven't started looking at us like this. There's still a lot of hero worship, and I think that's also the same in the West. No? I mean, we still have like the big actors, and whatever they do, everyone loves. But actually questioning, is that how men would like to live? Is that the films they would like to see? I think that's going to be an interesting debate. So now it's going to be on women and on men.
And I like this whole fact that sometimes you just don't have to ask for power and freedom. That the very choice that we put together a panel where men can talk about what they want to do in life, I think that puts us women in a power position, and that's feeling the power instead of just asking for the power.
I think so too. And I think, I mean, when women fought for change, it was always because we didn't want something. And I think men also need the same debate, like what do they not want and what do they want? Just like women do, and then we need to get back together at some point as well. I think it needs to be a shared debate.
Where is the lovely events you put up here?
We had quite a variety of events. We had a puppet show for kids. We had a very nice music, cinema night, music and activism, looking at the connection between...
Oh, that was the one Hariharan sir had done.
Yes, absolutely, Hariharan Shubashri. We have bands here. What was...
I love this auditorium, okay? The lighting here, everything. There's something very special about this. I know it's set up for the exam now, but I have such lovely memories of Cinema Rendezvous here. And there's something intimate about the conversations you could have. There were some old people who said, oh, the chairs are not very comfortable, but I personally found it so exciting with all this. And to perform here also is very interesting. I look forward to doing more things here.
Please do.
The 9 Emotions of Indian Cinema Hoardings. Very interesting books you have out here, Katrina. And I can see a whole lot of big mainstream posters here, a lot of Tamil with Vijaykanth right in the center. And I can see Sarita, a whole lot of actresses here. So I find that while you talk about things which are so specific to art house cinema, your interests are very mainstream too. And your doctorate was on mainstream cinema too. And I can see that you can, this is a poster you made for this program you did here.
Yes, that's for the men, male, masculine we did.
So one of the things I notice about you is that the subjects you speak are things we go more in detail in parallel cinema or so-called art house cinema. But you really dig Indian mainstream cinema, right from your Shah Rukh Khan to Rajinikanth to your Ponniyin Selvan and all these things. You like the works, you speak about costumes and why it's so important. So this is a lovely balance I see there. And when I got exposed to non-mainstream foreign films, I also noticed a certain loneliness, a certain violence there, which is very different from the violence I was used to seeing in Indian cinema. Your statement about violence is very interesting. I'd like to hear about what you like about Indian cinema and what you're not so comfortable with.
I think what I like about mainstream Indian cinema is the same thing I like about mainstream Western cinema, but I think there it's less. I like to connect with the society. I like how crazy people are about films, in a positive sense crazy. I mean, this kind of identification, the hero worshipping, the waiting for the first day, first show. This is just something, there's such an excitement about it. And I mean, if you are at the movies, there's this like, people are awaiting the first moment. I don't think Western cinema has managed the entrance of the hero or heroine in a way that Indian cinema has, showing small bits and people already realize and they start cheering. That is so much fun. I mean, this is so much a relationship between the film and the audience, which is something I really appreciate, and I also think that makes it special in terms of looking at films.
And what about the song and dance sequences?
Love it. I really, I know that lots of Westerners are like, it doesn't fit and it interrupts the story, but it's just a different way of telling the story. It's
I think the way our song and dance sequence will be seen by both Indians as well as foreigners will change now, because with the Golden Globe for RRR Nata Nata song today.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. So it's what Rahman's like all these Slumdog and all that did, no, in terms of music and dance is also going to change. But you had interesting viewpoints about the violence when we were discussing. I was talking about the residing violence inside the minds of people, especially with Scandinavian films when I saw that. And you were talking, because an outsider's perspective is very nice. What is it about the violence in Indian cinema that made you a little uncomfortable?
When I started watching Tamil films, this was really something that struck me, that there's a lot of everyday violence. Like the hero is on a motorcycle, something is happening behind, and he just gets off his bike and slaps the guy. And everyone is cheering. And in the first moment I was like, no, I didn't understand what's happening. Let me go back. But this is what's happening. And that for me is a little bit uncomfortable.
But our heroes are superheroes.
Then, especially then, they should have a better way treating the situation than beating up some poor guy who did something completely unimportant. So this is something, I get glorification of violence. It's personally not my thing. Like I said, I'm also not a big Tarantino fan, because I think yes, it's fun to see action-driven movies, and violence is a part of that. But I think having it as such a strong element in each and every film, and always, of course, connected with the male hero, for me, it's a little bit too much when it comes to Tamil film. But I mean, I've also started watching films randomly, so I might have also just had a bad hand.
Yeah, you had some interesting insights about the OTT content you were watching and all of these things. And I find, speaking about masculinity or the women portrayal and all that, and in mainstream, I think so, a very layered awareness of all these things. It's not like only parallel cinema talks about, art house speaks about it. mainstream doesn't speak about it. So I really feel excited with your kind of awareness, where we're talking about bringing that awareness into the framing, into the movement kept in mainstream cinema too. But because you are educated on film studies and you look at these things the way you do, I want you to comment as a closing note about what you think writing about Tamil cinema or cinema as an educational tool, as a subject. What do you see the future, and what do you think people in Chennai, young people in Chennai should do about cinema?
I think they should talk about it more. I think that's also the same all over the world, because you need to create this awareness, something that can be totally fun for entertainment. You still need to have this awareness that it's only fun and entertainment, and it's really not something you should worship outside. And I think your vision on this only sharpens if you have these conversations, that you say, look, that might have been an okayish hero move, but don't you ever think about doing this in real life. I know the connect real life hero is not that close, but I mean, people do idealize, especially the male hero. So I do think that we need to have these conversations, saying what would have been a different perspective. And long term, and this is also true all over the world, cinema is still male dominated. No? I mean, that's the same in Germany, in the US and India. And I think the moment we have more diverse voices telling different viewpoints, automatically you will get these different perspectives, which make you realize that there's not one single male perspective, which is going to change the debate.
Thank you, Katharina, because that's so heartwarming to hear for me, because I think that's why we idolize the female form in so many ways. We build temples for one of our heroines and all that, and we have goddesses, but which are very nice things, but are we in spirit following that also? How can that get portrayed in contemporary stories which we say is something of interest to me. Lovely hearing your thoughts on that. Thank you. And let's do something together for women in Chennai.
Please. Please.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you so much.